recorded that moment, but it shows up at a delay, but it is being
And the
recorded.
light is on, so.
All right,
Excuse me.
I will open up this town council meeting for March 2nd. Please stand for the pledge. People in the wings. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item, Twyla.
Is roll call. Counselor Albert.
Here.
Counselor Ganong.
Here.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Here.
Counselor Ward.
Here.
Counselor Lunt.
Here.
Counselor Fellows.
Here.
And Counselor Colby.
Is absent. She actually has a work commitment tonight. I need a vote on that, please.
I make the motion to excuse Councilor Colby.
I got the second right there. All in favor of that item?
Order passed. 6-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Is under good news and recognition your employee service awards.
Perfect. So am I reading these
The very
one by
first one you have.
one? Okay. First on my list, Diane, 5 years service, Diane Barnes.
Lisa, you want to go up there and pick it up? We're going to read the wooden one that you have first.
This
Lisa's
one?
going to go up front and bring it
Okay.
back down
All
after
right.
you read it.
I messed you up, Mr. Beal. I apologize.
Okay, keep you guessing.
It's certificate appreciation for over 30 years of service awarded to Elwood F. Beal, serving as laborer, foreman, interim public works director, and operations manager. It is praiseworthy to note Mr. Beal has served in many different capacities while dedicating his entire career of public service. Thank you. From the,
Gotcha.
You want this back, you said?
Yeah.
just so you know, we all
Thank
work
you.
the file.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'll get it back to you.
Buttons.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right.
So now we can begin with the 5-year service awards that go to.
Okay. 5 year service, Diane Barnes. Jared Blake.
All right, Jared, you're good. Oh, good. There you go.
Dennis Douglas.
No, he's not here.
Okay. Megan Levine. I just saw her leave. Claudia Lemieux. I apologize. William Meekin. John Sanamon. I'm sorry, I should be listing their title on the fact that I will do so on the 10 years. 10 years service awards. Stephen Alveoli, treatment plant superintendent. Glenn Darby, police department patrol officer. Okay.
Glenn's keeping us safe.
Kathleen Malloy, town assessor. Brenda Martin, finance accounts payable clerk. Marcel Obi, transfer station operations manager. Andrea Tapley, police department administrative assistant. 15 years of service. Renee Bernard, police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Dickinson, communications dispatch. Sean Kelly, patrol officer. Ryan McGee, police chief. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Cynthia Medlin, circulation aide. Daniel Poisson, foreman. Shelley Reynolds, business manager, water department. 20 year service awards. Jeffrey Cooper, animal control officer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nate Leclerc, fire chief. Okay. Jeff Picard, sergeant, police department. And I have Jason St. Pierre, sergeant, police department. 25 years service. Pauline Pelletier, Town, tax collector, collections clerk.
Thank you.
Mark Stevens, recreation director.
Thank you, Mark.
30 years service, Twyla Lysett, town clerk.
Twyla. Thank you, Twyla.
Yeah.
Diane Netto, library director. 35 years. Richard Santamont, detective.
There he is.
35 years?
I got a few more in me, so.
Dude, somewhere along the way, we got old.
35 years. Wow. Hey, he can remember hitching up the team to go chase crooks. Thanks, Rich.
All right, in the part-time category, part-timers, 10 years of service. Candace Williams, custodian. And part-timers, fire department, 5 years of service. Joshua Dubois, Scott Terrian, Tom McGrath, Ryan Robitaille, Kevin Lorette, DJ Judd. 10 years of service, fire department. Alex Casimir, Chad Pelletier, Jimmy Barabee, Adam Casimir, Eric Watson, Joe Robitaille, Jeffrey Carr, Jeremy Williams. 15 years at the fire department. Ryan Guay, Thomas Roble, Leland Gamache, Ronald Willett. 20 years at the fire department. Charles Thompson, Don Adams, James Lemieux. 25 years, Leo Hughes. 35 years, Dana Adams. 40 years, Robert Robitaille.
Give him a round of applause. A lot of folks. They're all busy keeping us safe tonight, that's why they can't be here.
5 years service, Lisa Ward, our EMA director. Parks and Recreation, 5 years of service. Tracy Bellew, bus driver. Barry Pomelo, coach. Jennifer Parent, coach. Christopher Cates, coach. David Novaria, coach. Jennifer Novaria, coach. Lynn Morin, instructor. Tanya Keating, instructor. Julie Collins, program supervisor. Karen Dorisco, program supervisor. Steve Martin, camp counselor. Amanda Martin, camp counselor. 10 years at service, the Parks and Rec. Jolene McKay, after school program. Julie Petrie, camp coordinator, counselor. Christy Feely, camp counselor. Joseph Norman, custodian of the buildings. Eileen Strout, senior coordinator for Parks and Recreation. 15 years, Anthony Russo, referee. 25 years, Stephanie Dowdy, custodian. 30 years, Irene Tobin, bus driver. 40 years of service, Priscille Allard, bus driver. I think that's everybody for Parks and Recreation. Police Department, 5 years of service, part-time. Melissa Kelly, dispatcher at the at Comm Center. John Chonko, dispatcher at the Communication Center. Andrew Levesque, reserve officer for the Police Department. Tiffany Libby, reserve officer for the Police Department. Glenn Brochine, reserve officer for the Police Department. Part-timers with 20 years of service for the police. Mark Bengelis, reserve dispatcher. Part-timers for town clerk and elections. Part-timers with over 5 years service. Victoria Baldwin Wilson, election clerk and deputy registrar. Mary DeGroff, election clerk. Bertrand Levesque, election clerk. Ricky Roberts, warden. Part-timers, it's only 5 years. Seems like we've been doing him forever.
It's like 20.
That
They're
Sorry.
over 5, less than 10 though.
Okay. Part-timers with 10 years. Jody Dorisco, election clerk. Linda Douglas, election clerk. Jane Fellows, election clerk. Robert Jordan, election clerk. Catherine Church, election clerk, deputy registrar. Joe Jean Keller, election clerk. Sheila Gray, election clerk. Part-timers with 15 years. Anita Fournier, election clerk, deputy warden. Part-timers with 20 years. Gwen Mitchell, deputy registrar. Karen Hanlon, election clerk. Peggy Ganong, election clerk. Lorraine Dunn, election clerk. Part-timers with 25 years. Monique Gayton, election clerk. And Donna Stewart, election clerk. Thank you for everybody that's tenure within the town for everything that you guys do to make this work. Thank you for everything. Next item, 12.
The public hearings. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those present who wish to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time, to address the council chair. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record. And for those listening from Town Hall Live Video Stream, they are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org. Councilor Ward will review his emails at this time. First public hearing is to amend Chapter 10, Business Licenses, Article 4, Itinerant Vendors, Section 10-253, and Section 10-259.
I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody in the wing wishing to speak on behalf of that, Diane?
Don't think so. There's nobody here to speak on the itinerant vendor ordinance? No.
And I have no communications, so we'll close the public hearing and move to the next item, 12.
Okay. And next is audience participation and response for agenda items. And at this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may enter the room, approach the lectern, one individual at a time, to address items and issues that are on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record. Those listening from Town Hall Streams are now invited to send written comments by emailing award@lisbonme.org. Councilor Ward will review emails at this time.
Welcome, sir. Can you step right up and please state your name?
Hi, I'm Peter Larochelle.
Sure.
I live on Frost Hill Avenue. Brought a couple pictures I'd like to pass around, if that'd be all right.
Sure. Why don't you start right there with Mr. Ganong, and we'll work our way through. What brings you here tonight, sir?
There's a solar farm project on Frost Hill that's looking to be approved. So what it is there's an issue across the nation that solar farms are popping up everywhere, and nobody knows where they fit in, and nobody has a lot of information on them. With the state passing the tax exempt, that they're popping up everywhere. I built my house 2 years ago on Frost Hill, and high on the ridge I have a beautiful view. With the solar farm, the proposed solar farm will be right outside my window. I'll be looking right at it. So what I'm going to ask for is the town with a moratorium on solar projects, big commercial solar projects, so the town can get more information on them and know more about them, the impact it's going to have on neighborhoods, the town. There's a lot of towns and counties in Maine that have already done the same. Monmouth, Knox, Mount Blue, Madison, Farmington, Wilton, Blue Hill, Belgrade, Rockport, and Bangor. They've all had the same issue, and it was unanimously passed in all of those. So with this view of the solar farm comes a glare. It occurs, observer sees a direct reflection of the sunlight caused by a mirror-like reflection from the surface off one or more panels. There's a visual impact analysis that can be done to measure this. I don't believe it's been done with this project. The reflection with the direct exposed sun is just like reflection off high polished steel or wet pavement or water. this large commercial project in a limited residential zone, I think we should look it over. It's going to have a huge impact on our neighborhood. I think with the growing number of applicants for solar farms, a moratorium will help the town understand solar farms and give us the time we need. I believe there's already 9 applicants looking to get approval in the town. Did you guys get a chance to read the letter from a friend and neighbor, John Minahan? Did everybody get the chance to read?
I'll let you finish at the podium. Yes, I will be reading his memo into the record.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I guess that's my concerns, and
Perfect.
appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate your time tonight. Diane, is there anybody else out there? Yep.
Excuse me.
I have a pitch. My name is Lisa McDougall. On this picture here, it says Pelletier House, which is actually my house. I'll pass this picture around that you already saw, which is the Solar Zone 1 area. This solar farm, if it happens, is going to impact half of my property. I have a 2-story house. I moved back here after 37 years of being gone, back to Maine. I love Lisbon Falls. My husband and I bought the house because it's set back in. It's got nice prairie in the back. It's got the beautiful trees in the property. My house is 2-story. Every single window in my house looks out on the back field where this solar panel project will supposedly be happening. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'll have to look at these solar panels. I work at home. I can't go outside and enjoy the view of my property anymore if these solar panels are put there. I feel that's not fair to me and my husband. Also, too, our property values are going to go down. Don't tell me they won't, because they will. I've done research on it. Nobody will want to buy my house with solar panels around half the property when they could buy somebody else's with no solar panels. I am asking for a moratorium for more research into this, other places that this could be done, other land that's been cleared that this could possibly be built on. I also understand possibly the gentleman that owns the property on the opposite side of the back field on the map here would possibly be willing to take the solar panel area behind my house and move it back further onto his property, which that would be an option that I would be happy about. Because I don't want to spend every single day, 365 days a year, looking at solar panels. I've lost the beauty of my house. I've lost the beauty of the neighborhood. And I'm never going to get that back. We have deer that come in the backyard. We have turkeys. We've had 20 at a time. We have foxes. Yes, skunks are bad, but we have the skunks come in. We even had a porcupine. We have hawks that are in our trees that go to the back field trees and come back into our yard. I am going to lose all of that if this solar farm goes in. And it's not fair to me or my husband. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I don't think there's anybody else.
Okay. If there's nobody else, I have a email that I received earlier today. Lisbon Town Council, Solar Farm Moratorium. Dear council members, thank you for this opportunity for me to be heard. I would be there in person. However, we have a positive COVID case in my home, and I am able to attend town council meeting tonight in person. I own the property at 93 Frost Hill Avenue. I want to express my hope for a retroactive moratorium for any pending or planned solar farm or solar farms in our town. Specifically, there is a proposed 17.5-acre solar farm on 101 Frost Hill Avenue that is currently before the planning board pending approval. Although I'm certainly not an appointed spokesperson for my neighbors, we are in agreement in holding a pending vote by the taxpayers. Other municipalities have adopted similar retroactive moratoriums to give their respective communities an opportunity to be educated on what solar farms are, what they look like, how they operate, what they affect and have on local economy, and where they could be developed in the community. For reference, the town of Monmouth has recently adopted a retroactive moratorium with a large commercial solar farm that was before its planning board as well. As it stands now, these companies can place these large commercial structures in residential neighborhoods with no regard to the abutting property owners. I would like to argue that the following should be considered. 1. The size and scope of such a proposed commercial project is not appropriate for a limited residential zoned neighborhood. Under current zoning, these structures can be placed and developed unacceptably close to neighboring homeowners, causing them great grief. 2. There was not, in our opinion, an acceptable amount of time given to the abutting property owners regarding this proposal, therefore causing us to be greatly unprepared properly to voice our concerns after the obvious visual aspect of how it affects us as property owners. There is much we need to learn about the impact of such a scale project in a residential setting. 3. We also feel that the town itself is unprepared for solar arrays or farms to be developed. More time needs to be given to the community so it can be decided where these large commercial grade utilitarian structures are to be developed. We should also be able to examine what the property tax value implications should be for abutting property owners. It's been stated at the planning board hearing that there is no proof that there is an impact on property values. I would argue that there is a definite perceived loss in value if a homeowner decided to sell their property home and potential buyer were to compare a similar home that does not abut a large-scale, unappealing solar farm. There would be a clear disadvantage. 4. At the very least, if this specific Frost Hill project were to be approved, it should be revised so that the 10-acre southern section be moved back to a northwestern section so that it lessens the impact felt by the abutting property owners on the eastern boundary. It's my understanding that the property owner on the northern boundary is a proponent of this project and has stated so, and that the northwestern boundary is owned by the town. The current plan leaves this southern section in direct view and unacceptably close to the abutting property owners along the eastern boundary, the majority of which oppose this project. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I hope that you will take this into consideration as a long-lasting effect on this community and ultimately on our very own neighborhood here on Frost Hill. Respectively submitted, John L. Moynihan, Jr. I will check my emails one more time. And I have nothing else at this time, Chloe. No other movement in the wings. We will go on to the next item.
All right. The consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a counselor requests an item to be removed for immediate discussion. Any counselor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none, Order 2021, number 44, to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants for $251,506.79, the municipal payroll warrants for $197,034.82, the school accounts payable warrants for $174,243.94, the school payroll warrants for $358,072.94, along with the council meeting minutes for February 16th, 2021, and the temporary road postings, which includes authorization to adopt the MDOT state rules and Chapter 308 for local roads, and to authorize the temporary road closures for Bodenham Road, Borough Road, Edgecombe Road, Ferry Road, Fisher Road, Gould Road, Hewden Road, K Road, King Road, Littlefield Road, Mill Street, Moody Road, Pinewoods Road, River Road, and Summer Street, along with Wing Street and Webster Road, which are posted year-around.
Make a motion to approve?
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item, 12.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Order 2021-45A, the solar farm discussion.
Ms. Laird, you have the floor.
I guess we actually spoke tonight. I guess there was some certain citizens about a project that came up that, I recommended to go to the planning board. And then once they followed through with the planning board, they actually still had some concerns following, so they actually asked if they could present here tonight, and that's kind of what we heard earlier. I'd be kind of interested to hear. I'm not sure if Mr. Chair, if Diane actually had any opportunity to speak to Dan and just see what our options are. I mean, I realize tonight that we may not be able to make any decisions or not, but at least it'd be good as a council as a whole to actually to understand where we fit in and where we don't, and then where the planning board fits in. And unfortunately, we've seen this in the past. It's seen so in this last few years. We've actually had many things come forward to the planning board that actually ended up coming to council and moving on because of things that we never seen before. The marijuana thing was a big factor that came through, and it made a very, very hard road for the planning board to actually navigate through that. And I see this type of thing as being the same thing, especially if it's starting to affect some of the citizens in our community. And it's basically our responsibility is representing those people to actually bring it forward and at least to see what we can do and what we can't do. And hearing that there's been other municipalities that have actually done the same thing, I'm curious to see, even if they had a pending case up front of the planning board, what the legalities of that and what Dan had to say. So.
Yeah, so I spoke to Dan Stockford, and we can treat this issue similar to what we did with the marijuana ordinance, where we enacted a moratorium, and it's the same thing as an emergency ordinance. So we just need to work on the language, and Dan's going to work on that for me, and we can present that at the next meeting if that's the way the council wants to go.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah?
I have a concern about doing a moratorium. I don't disagree with the moratorium. I think that there isn't a zone in our whole zoning ordinance that addresses specifically solar farms or solar at all. So that's something that should be addressed. I think a moratorium might be in order. What I do wonder about, though, and I don't know, in the case of having a moratorium previously, we would not accept applications before putting a moratorium in place. In other words, and it's even in some of the statutes, if we accepted an application, then it's subject to question whether or not we can put a moratorium on that particular case. We might be able to put it on everything after. So I'm not sure Dan has addressed that.
Yes, he has. I brought that to his attention as well. I told him about the case that has already been approved through the planning board, which is the Mill Street one. He said as long as we haven't issued any permits, which we haven't, that would fall under the moratorium. And I talked about the one that just had the public hearing, and then there's also another one that hasn't, I think it made an initial appearance in front of the
He hasn't submitted a formal application.
Okay, well, they're working on that, but all three of those would fall under the moratorium.
Which means?
Everything would be on hold until during that moratorium.
The one on the street's already been approved.
As long as we haven't issued any permits, his ruling was that moratorium would cover that one as well.
So they couldn't act?
Right, until you've decided what you're going to do during the moratorium. Yeah. That's what he said.
Well,
I think we might risk lawsuits over that if we're not careful there, because I think they could easily sue you and say that we had approval and then you're denying me permits despite we already had approval, and you can't retroactively change the law.
That's exactly what I think.
I mean, one of those things, by the sounds of things, I mean, it's happened in other communities. If what was actually mentioned earlier about other communities that have actually place moratoriums in place after permit has already process gone through. I'm sure Dan can actually look into that and see. I mean, they would be able to find out. I mean, if there was a legal action, I mean, there would have already been taking place in these other communities. So it'd be worthwhile to at least ask the questions. And Dan, being our legal review, I would actually respect his opinion beyond anybody's opinion at this point, because he's the one that represents us to guide us through.
I get that, but
Mr. Chair.
everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to mine too, and I'm perfectly well agreeing with a moratorium on future developments, just like we did with the marijuana thing. Even in state statute, they allowed marijuana institutions to go forward that beat the moratorium. So I'm not convinced that that's the way to go.
No. So my ask is that we definitely have some options on the table, but I want to take a step back because I know that we talked a little bit before we had the meeting tonight, and I feel like there may be something that is in the appeals process that would allow the folks who've come here tonight and expressed their concerns regarding that project to be able to, upon appeal, go back and say, here's why we believe this doesn't fit and shouldn't have been approved, and we're appealing that approval. And I believe that there could be something there for them to pursue that way through that course. And if that overturns that, then that would open the door for us to then put a moratorium in place and be able to go back to the drawing board and say, let's talk this through. I think it allows the process that Don is talking about and Mark's talking about to remain keep the integrity of that process sound, and also keep liability from the town. But at the same time, we want to honor what we've heard tonight and what we've heard in email and communications. So I think it's a slippery slope, but I think that what we have to do is have that conversation. And I don't know if it's a bad idea. I think it's probably a good idea for maybe the chair of the council and maybe the chair of the planning board to have a quick discussion and talk that through and see where we're at on that. But more importantly, letting the folks know who came tonight that they do have options and that those options can be pursued. Because I think some of the arguments that they made at the lectern tonight certainly stand on their own and are valid. And I think that they deserve to be heard.
Mr. Chair. Don, you had a question? Yeah. Response, I mean.
As you know, but maybe the public doesn't know, I'm currently the liaison to the planning board. And I went to the planning board meeting the other night and heard the same comments from the same people. And I don't disagree that they have a point of view that's valid, and it's particularly when we're questioning zoning. The other thing that I also know, the owner's rights of property have to be considered as well. For example, a limited residential area can set up a subdivision by permission, by application, on that same property. So in that case, I mean, I'm not saying that should be the case. I'm just saying it could be the case. If we had a subdivision apply on that piece of property, you wouldn't have much way to refuse that. So that, to the point of obstructing views and all that stuff, if you don't own the property, it's not your property to control a view on. And so we have to consider that too, as well as their legitimate concerns at this point.
So I have two questions for you, Don. One being the resident, because you were the prior planning board chair, but the one that comes to mind first is what about zoning associated with commercial versus a residential neighborhood? Is that incomplete in our current ordinance?
Most of the activities for commercial, not specifically solar, but most of the commercial activities are prohibited in limited residential.
Right. Okay. So my next,
and I'm just looking at them, and there's nothing that covers solar.
And that's
I suppose you could stretch something to cover it, and sometimes you have to do that.
But I'm in that regard going that logic. our ordinance would be incomplete because there is no provision for something like a solar which has commercial in a residential neighborhood.
Well, the caveat to all that is if it's not in there specifically, then it's prohibited. That's the reading right at the front of the chapter, so you could go with that too.
Okay,
I
so
think
that covers them on that angle as well, too.
I think this is why it's a good idea to develop an actual ordinance that deals with solar farms, and it might be a good idea to have a moratorium for, whatever time we need to develop that ordinance, so we're not just shooting in the dark there. So I think
Interpretation.
If you take the interpretation that it's banned everywhere, you're going to run into state law that says you can't ban, solar farms entirely through your town, just like you can't ban, mobile home parks.
So can I ask you a clarification question, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
Are you advocating then for a moratorium, just not having it be retroactive?
I would support a moratorium, give us some time to have the planning board look at an actual ordinance dealing with solar farms. I think if we could, especially if we would do it fast before they, any approval on this existing case that we're talking about, then we would avoid a legal issue on that one. If we try to do it retroactively, I think we're going to run into the one on the Mill Street. I don't know. The developer might say, okay, we'll hold off for 6 months, or they might say we'll take it to court and let a judge decide.
So, Don, were you in that same? I was hearing that too, but I don't want to speak for you.
Yes.
Are you in that same mindset that
Yes.
the issue you have with the moratorium
I don't think
would be
it's
retroactively?
Personally, I don't think it's ethical to take an application on something and then say, "Oops, nope, sorry, we'll take it back."
Okay.
I do think we do need to remember this. The one that the people that were forced today has not actually been approved. The planning board tabled that to get more information.
Future
next time,
discussion.
So it's not been approved yet. So
No, it has not.
Yeah,
And if
right.
the planning board, quite frankly, has 2 weeks, they're considering different
Right.
things and different options.
trying to work with people.
And I know from listening that the applicant has expressed interest or a willingness to adapt the plan
To make it work
more
within the area.
favorable, even if it included other property. If they were to formally pull the application, that would probably make them fall under the moratorium.
Okay. Fern, I heard you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different things. One is, to me, guessing whether we're going to be held liable or not. I mean, that's not for us to actually guess on. I mean, that's why we actually hire.
That's what Dan's.
That's Dan's job.
That's Dan.
You mean,
Which is why I took
and
the
to say that
opportunity to
it's
get involved
actually,
today.
it's an issue that we got to address because we haven't addressed it as a town, but yet the people that actually are going to be portrayed now are less prevalent because we didn't follow our regulations before. I mean, kind of what you're saying, Don, is when this should have came to planning board, it should have been a no-brainer. They shouldn't even been allowed to actually proceed with the plans because it's actually commercial in a residential area.
No, I don't agree that
That's
it's a
not
commercial in a
necessarily
residential area. No, it's not defined in any way. You can't just say it's a commercial. I mean, by that you could say, well, I can't rent my house in a residential area because that's a commercial activity.
Well, are you
disagree-
saying,
I
are you
disagree
stating
with
that
that it's
basically
commercial.
And I disagree too.
someone, if a commercial company is producing power for revenue, that's not a commercial? I guess I'm not a legal person.
Right.
All I know, I'm basically just representing the citizens that have a concern that don't have a voice other than what we have. So, I mean, to me, I'm in favor of a moratorium. I'd even go for proactive, and I'd let Dan, if Dan actually thinks we're going to be legally liable, and it's actually a big concern, then we'd have to address it. But if Dan comes forward and actually says, no, we're not liable at all, that's why we pay for Dan for it. And to actually say that, to go to the appeals board, I've personally had opportunities to go through the appeals board, and once it's approved by the planning board, if it goes to the appeals board and it actually doesn't get denied, you just set precedent that that's the way it goes. It's pretty hard to back up from there. And as a landowner, you can't back up from there. That is really not at that point in time, we're actually, I'll paint the picture, okay? So this is a big organization that actually has a lot of money putting in a project. If this goes to planning board, now we're going to actually require our citizens to actually get lawyers to actually meet the requirement of actually meeting the criteria of actually proving through our appeals board that this wasn't, the town actually did wrong. Basically what they have to prove is the town did wrong. So, as a town, we got to actually kind of contradict that. So, it's one of those things where when you go to appeals board, you're basically just saying the town did something wrong. So as a citizen, we're making them say, you got to fight us to win your battle. So, again, I'm not sure if that's the place I want to put these people, but that's, again, as Don mentioned earlier, we all have opinions. My opinion is that we're here to represent citizens of the community, so whatever we can do to actually do that, that's our job. I'm not here to represent a corporate company coming in to try to build a solar farm. I'm here to represent the citizens that voted us in. So that's my point.
I would just say that what we've heard from is the citizens that are vocal. We haven't heard from the citizens who are not. We haven't heard from this is not a hearing. We had a hearing the other night. I find it unethical to put a retroactive moratorium on somebody who's legitimately put an application in. I don't find it wrong to do a moratorium. I don't find it wrong to encourage somebody to investigate other applications and hold the application until that time. But I do find it retroactive. I can't support that.
But
Go ahead.
the clarification question that I asked earlier is the fact is our ordinance is incomplete with something the nature of solar, so the moratorium does make sense. That's the piece I'm focusing on, right?
That's true.
Okay.
As many other towns are.
I agreed. 3 years ago, this issue wasn't here. But the fact is, the explosion associated with the green initiative that's played out in the last 18 months has created the situation a lot of communities are finding themselves in.
This project has not been approved.
No.
So we know that. So I'm just trying to kind of lay it all out here. We know the project hasn't been approved. We know the planning board heard these same arguments that we're hearing tonight. We know that they have 2 weeks in which to look at all the information, make a determination whether or not they're going to approve the project based off everything.
They actually have 60 days.
So it's up to 60 days, but at least they gave, they're going to review for 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, they'll make some determinations about whether they want to move forward. And I'm going to lean heavily on your experience with the planning board here, Don, forgive me. In your opinion, in the past, if you've had situations that come up similar to this, we're going to weigh all that and not just going to move. I know that the process is a very rigid one in the sense that does it check this box, does it check this box, moving forward. But when something like this comes up, I'm sure it's weighed. It's not about checking a box. It's about understanding that we may have some deficiencies in an ordinance that this doesn't meet that criteria, and therefore, on its face, we can't move forward with this because it doesn't meet that.
That aside, I just wanted to say there has to be a condition. You listen to the lawyer, the past lawyer. There has to be a condition that the applicant can meet if they've put one in good faith and complied with everything we have. And the situation doesn't mean that some of the conditions can't be tough on the company. Doesn't mean they can't meet some of the criteria that these people are concerned about. And that in itself, doing it that way, making everybody happy, which I think the applicant is trying to do anyway.
I get that impression from what I've heard.
Because they've done several. I think doing it that way makes it a lot more palatable. And if we were to,
Which is exactly the path we took with marijuana for medicinal back when, is the fact that that same condition, you have to be able, you can't deny an applicant based on no condition. They need to have given that chance to meet.
Once the application has been accepted as complete,
right,
that puts us in a different game.
Right. Okay.
Chairman, let's just Don the question, because I'd assume this, and again, assuming it gets me in trouble. So, Don, as the applicant stands right now, I mean, there's been a lot of work on the application, without a doubt. There's people behind the desk that work all day long doing this. If they were to choose not to change a thing about it, and they were just to stand their ground, is there any grounds for the planning board to refuse that project?
Yes.
What grounds would that be on?
It can't meet the conditions, and they're reasonable conditions.
So the planning board can make any conditions they want, even though it's
as
not
long
a
as they're
condition.
reasonable.
But this isn't a conditional use area, so I mean,
No, but the approval of the farm is a conditional. It was applied as a conditional use.
It was. So they can actually say you're limited to 2 acres.
Actually, it was a site plan review.
So
I
they
believe the site plan review. Either way, it's a.
So they could limit it to 1 acre in the rear back, and that's just what they would have to do. And if they didn't agree with that, you could refuse the project.
If that's what the planning board, and if that's proven, you can always go to court. But if that's proven to be reasonable,
But I mean, the hardest thing is just not there's more open-ended questions than there is actually
Yeah.
any definite legal.
I think what I heard, and I can't speak for everybody else, well, I've heard from the constituents who heard from tonight and heard from directly over telephone and email, it's not so much that they say we don't favor green energy or this project.
Right.
What we do favor is something that is not right up against our homes, or and I heard your point about private landowners. They can build whatever they want, and if it obstructs your view, well, you don't own the property. That's that. But I think from what I'm hearing from the landowner is that they're willing to consider the solar array in different areas that would be away from the folks that are impacted.
And I heard that too.
So it sounds to me like you have a willing dance partner, and the last thing I want to see us do is have this go to an adversarial type thing, and I don't want us to be stoking the flames. I think the exact opposite needs to happen. I think the cooler heads prevail. It sounds like we have two parties that could probably get together and work all these things out in a blink of an eye, and they've gone through the appropriate conduit in the form of the planning board. Now, as you just described it, the planning board has the ability to shape what the company needs to meet, including the conditions that some of these homeowners have offered up as part of the bar that must be met in order to get the final approval to move forward. I think that tells me that if it's just from where I'm standing, I got to have faith in the folks that we put in the seats in the planning board to be able to take those things and move them forward. I'm happy. I will tell you right now, I support a moratorium, and I'll stand behind that right now, and that's why I'll vote tonight. But I don't believe that that's the way that we should move in this moment. So that's my piece for what it's worth. I think we have a chance here to let these folks work some things out and allow the planning board to take the tools that they have in place and make it happen.
Now, Don, and I wasn't there the other night, was the landowner there present at the meeting?
No.
And does the landowner present the permit, or is it actually the company that presents the permit? Who's actually
It's the
asking for the permit?
company who's leasing the land. I believe, yes, leasing
Basically,
the
the
land.
tenant.
Yeah, the tenant.
They're presenting it as a tenant.
Typical fashion, though. That's how
Yeah.
they.
It's a long-term lease, though. Let's
Yeah,
not
20
be.
years.
Yeah, we're not.
But with an opportunity to extend.
It could be a couple generations of families if they get that extension out. 40 years out. That's a couple gens of, and gosh only knows, development-wise, I think we're in the right place to kick this off with the goodwill towards everybody involved on both sides of this. But then from there, develop something in our ordinance that allows for meaningful and measured growth versus free range.
Do you have a question with that, Vern?
Mr. Chair, like I said, I'm not opposed to doing things the right way. It's a little shocking to me, even though legitimately, if I'm building in that area, I should look at the rules. But there's nothing in the rules that says anything about solar, so I wouldn't naturally investigate that as part of building a house. So, yeah, I can see where they get caught flat-footed in that.
Meaning planning board?
No,
You lost me.
the residents.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
If I may, Chair. So at this point in time, I guess one of the things are going to be asked tomorrow, much like the questions were asked after the planning board, where they went and they met their discussion and they really left not knowing any more than they went in. If there is a procedure for the planning board to sit down and listen to the landowners to actually come up with conditions that can be met, at what platform does that happen? Is this done at another public hearing, or is that something that the residents, they left the planning board really just thinking that there was a lot of head nodding going on, and it really what they said weren't going to go beyond that. And I don't want that to leave here tonight being the same way. So, if there is an avenue that, a set plan that we can say, you're next, if you have a concern and you're willing to work through this, your next opportunity is to work with the planning board on X and hope to get the next step and to actually try to fulfill the idea of meeting these halfway, markers that you're talking about, the idea of both parties. But if there's not an avenue for both parties or all three parties, if we're talking about to actually meet and go over this without it being the next public hearing where they're going to potentially approve it, that really doesn't leave them much avenue to do. And I don't know how the planning board's working right now. If they're doing live, if they're, that type of stuff where that avenue comes in.
I understand. We're having, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I understand, and there is a provision that the planning board could have another hearing, another formal public hearing. They could also workshop the issue unofficially, and workshops typically aren't open to the public, but that doesn't mean they couldn't talk to an applicant in a workshop situation. And I don't know, but maybe the applicant is already working on some of that other stuff. I don't know that, what they're doing. So yes, the planning board should probably take as much time as it takes, up to 60 days, to work on this thing and get conversations going back and forth. And do that through Dennis, and I bet you it can happen one way or another.
The action that I took in preparation for tonight for this item, actually putting on the adjusted agenda, or revised agenda, I mean, both Dennis and the planning board chair have been apprised of this discussion, so they know that it's here. I'm sure they will go and watch the videotape as well associated with that, so
good.
I appreciate your feedback, Don.
I would just hope that we leave here with getting more information, and one of that being, the big concern we had about legalities and the idea of legal battles and stuff like that. I mean, hopefully our legal can actually give us a good handle on that, because, I mean, if it is pushed out 60 days, we actually still have opportunity in the near future, if we realize that we are up against a gun for some reason, to actually potentially at our next meeting even vote into the moratorium. So I think between now and then, as a council and a planning board, we need to, if we have a planning board that actually doesn't feel that, they actually have the tools in the toolbox to actually work with this. I mean, I'm not sure, what they feel they have and what they don't. I don't really know. I think hopefully the council would be prepared to actually do what we need to do to make sure that the residents in the community are represented properly. That's all.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Sorry, I heard
Sorry,
you. Wanna
Don,
go,
I heard you second.
I was going to say, if we are entertaining a moratorium, I think you said Dan was working on one.
Well, he can, depending on what you
Okay.
decide
Then
tonight.
We have no motion on the table right now.
I was going to say, if I would make a motion to establish a moratorium. I don't know if we would be doing it as an emergency ordinance or what.
Yeah.
I guess we are. So that doesn't require.
That makes it effective today, based on
once it's written.
Once it's written from him, right?
Yeah. I would make a motion in that order, not retroactively, however.
I could cut that piece.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I was going to take the temperature in the room to Councilor LaRochelle's point. I absolutely feel very strongly about a position to allow that process to play out at that planning board level. However, I am in support of a moratorium that would be retroactive in the event that something doesn't come up there, because I do feel very strongly that it is important to protect the residential neighborhoods from these types of. I realize that this is no fault of the landowner or the companies. So this is not something that they set up to do to try to hurt anybody. But I think that there was a hole in this ordinance, so we need to find a way to make sure that the folks that purchase homes in those areas, I don't know that their property value is going to be impacted. And so if they come to us saying that they have data that supports that, I know I put myself in their shoes for a minute and think about if my house is worth $200,000 and a solar farm drops in there and I lose $50K and realized value from my home sale, that's probably going to throw me into a little bit of a tailspin, make me a little upset. So I would support a retroactive moratorium, understanding that our council has looked at it, and while I understand there's been some opinions that go contrary to that and say that there could be some liability, I still support the idea of a moratorium that would be retroactive. But I would say that we hold that and table it to what you had said earlier, Councilor Rochelle, our next meeting. Let's allow some time for the.
We have a motion on the table. He has a motion on the floor. I can appreciate where you're coming from, but I was letting him finish his thought, sir.
But two different animals.
Yes.
You haven't got a second.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a second for his motion, or it goes nowhere.
Yeah. I'll second.
I have a second. Is there more discussion on this item? Because this is typically the way that we play this.
So basically what you're saying is if we vote now and it gets voted in, there would be no aspect of a moratorium that was retroactive.
Yeah, so Dawn's is going to be everything from this day forward. That's what Don's is saying.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was
Let
saying
me ask a question, though, of Diane, if I can.
Yes.
What was it Dan said about the retroactive, as long as what?
Is any permits have not been issued.
I believe there have been permits.
I asked Dennis today, and he has not issued the construction
Well,
permit.
okay, I guess they put up erosion control fencing without a permit,
Evidently, I asked him if he had issued
Well,
a
I don't
permit,
know.
and he said no.
and they've repaired the road. I don't know if they did that without permits or not.
I
but
only hope
anyway.
that our codes officer knows that we indeed gave permits or not. I would
I
think,
know.
but
Yeah, well,
So,
anyway, there's that
but-
question.
big company
But
does what
on
they
the
want to
other-
do typically,
I know.
unfortunately.
Diane, please.
So just the other thing is, the one that's before the planning board right now has not even been approved.
Right.
I know.
But
So
we're,
if you
we're
did-
we're looking at equity on projects in that regard.
Exactly, so if you put a moratorium on, I would think it would cover that one.
It would.
Wouldn't be from this point forward.
I don't know if
Any
you'd
new
get away
applic-
with it legally, but it would be, yeah.
Well, yeah,
The only reason I went to the length I went beyond just the moratorium is because I wanted to make sure that we're doing right by, if we go with that, if my understanding of what I've heard tonight is that we have the ability, not that we should exercise it, but we have the ability to go that way, so it would cover all projects, and that would be the one we've already issued permits on too, is that correct?
right, yeah.
So, okay.
I
think I want
just,
to,
when I talked to him today, I wanted to cover every single base, so I tried to ask
Yeah,
all the questions, and
I escalated, it is
Yep.
possible. But you're seeing the recourse, absolutely. Doesn't mean that it won't open you up to somebody crying foul after the fact, but it is possible.
just so I'm clear, because we're talking about a lot of things all at once here, and I just want to make sure I get it right. Dawn, you're saying that if we just do moratorium from this moment forward, because we haven't issued a permit on the one on Frost Hill yet, it would fall under that umbrella, correct?
No, that's what Diane said.
No,
Diane
I'm
said
not
that.
saying that.
Diane said that.
You're saying
Dawn
that-
is
I'm
questioning
saying
it.
it's already been an accepted application, it's unethical to
Yes.
say.
To throw a moratorium on top of it. Okay, good. So that's what I want to understand. Thank you. That's perfect.
Because there's a condition, somehow or another, a condition could be met.
It cleared it up for me. I don't need to, we don't need to do the retroactive to get what we need to get done tonight. Well,
I mean, if you're thinking the same thing, so what Don's actually motions would actually affect the one on Frost Hill, that would actually fall under the moratorium at this point.
according to Diane and Dan, right?
yes.
Okay, yes.
And when's the moratorium take effect?
Immediately.
Immediately,
Not retroactively.
no. Well, it depends on how you want to write it.
I want it
I mean, I
effective.
think
I
that- that's
want
what you're
Dan to
gonna
write it
decide
effective tonight, because it's what the action is there. He's going to be putting the language together.
They'll be putting, and if you want it to be retroactively, then he'll need to put
No,
that language in
tonight.
there.
That the night, the motion was made here tonight for a moratorium in second. Who was the second?
I
Yeah,
guess I
I'm
don't
sorry.
understand, Chair, may I just get clarification? So the moratorium tonight, whether it's retroactive or
Well,
not.
it's not tonight, it's whenever you do it. It's like an emergency ordinance.
Yep.
So if you want it, it'll be at the next meeting, then it will be effective then,
That will actually,
not tonight.
whether it's retroactive or not, it still affects all the same projects. Is that true or false?
Could, if Diane has presented to us that the fact is if there have been no permits pulled on the other projects, they would fall under that.
So all of them at this point, if there's no permits, would fall underneath that moratorium. So you don't actually have to even do a retroactive, you actually
right.
just a
That's
straightforward
right.
moratorium. That's the motions out front of us.
But
Right.
Okay.
Dawn has heartburn on the one that's already cleared the planning board for ethicalness.
It hasn't cleared the planning board, but it's an application that's been accepted.
I mean,
Accepted.
Well, because there's the Mill Street one, which I think they're talking about is the one that's already
The Mill Street
cleared,
one,
which is,
yeah,
and then there's, I think that the Mill Street one is the one where you're going to run into legal issues,
Yeah,
which is
more than
separate from
anything else.
the Frost Hill one we're talking about.
Right.
When do we
So
anticipate?
maybe that he could write it a way that says that it would only cover those pending projects and future projects, but not one that's already been approved. I think you can write the ordinance any way
Accepted
you
as
want.
complete is the term that Dawn used.
Right, so,
So the one on Mill Street's already been accepted as complete,
Oh, a long time ago.
okay? And that's the only one that's been
So
accepted.
there's the distinction.
I would actually have no problem with that being written into that, because I mean, I think there is, I mean,
Well, if you make it effective tonight, it's not retroactive, so it doesn't
I'm
matter.
going to go out on a limb
No,
and
I
say
see
this
what
ain't
you're
Dan's
saying.
first rodeo, and he probably could
Whatever it
language.
takes.
But the terminology is not accepted as complete by the planning board is the
right.
piece that I heard.
So is, right.
That distinction will be the key, I think.
And if we're calculating votes here
Hey, not
on
approved
an
by the
action
planning board
item,
is the
I
present
want to be
language.
clear on what we're voting on. Sorry, Mark, I
Right,
interrupted.
Don, did they approve it as complete for a plan, which is different from approving it? I mean, have they accepted it as complete?
They've
I wasn't
accepted
there
it as
to
a complete application.
Right, they just haven't approved the application
Right,
yet.
right.
So that's what I'm just saying, we want to be careful that we use the language, hasn't been approved by the planning board yet.
That's why I say, accepted as complete.
No, accepted as complete is different from approved, is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm saying,
Okay.
Oh, right.
accepted
Which-
as complete should
Right.
not fall under the
Right,
moratorium.
yes, yeah.
I think that what we can do is communicate that with Diane. You got a pretty strong
Yep.
understanding of what it is we're trying to get at, and if you
Yep.
don't, you'll come back to us with questions
Yes.
for Dan, I'm sure.
So as I understand it, so none of you in the room have an issue with the Mill Street one?
No.
Okay.
Diane,
I can work with that. What?
whatever language I actually put together, can you provide it to
I-
Dawn as the
I will.
liaison here in
Yep.
the back, mixing a note that we at least got the right terminology?
And again, don't get me wrong, I want those people to be happy, and I want the solar farm people to be happy, but I'm hoping in the next several weeks that we can resolve it all, so they're not an issue for anybody.
I want it to be the prettiest solar farm that we can't see from the
I
road
know,
on Frost Hill.
And
That's
you
all
know
I
what,
want.
there's already buffers that can be put up, so.
I just want it to be the most beautiful damn solar farm that we're getting all kinds of energy savings revenue from, but no, it's the best kept secret in Lisbon Falls.
All right.
All right,
How
any
long
other,
was
any
before?
other discussion item before I move this?
I have a question, how long would the moratorium be for? I think
In 90 days,
90
that's
days,
the
okay.
emergency.
And we have the ability to
we can
renew
renew it
that
again,
after
right,
that
and we can
90
see
days.
how things are going between the disputant people at the time.
Okay, does that work, Mark?
Yep, that works for me.
Any other questions? I want to move the item. That's all in favor, right? There's no roll call on that, because
You
that's
can do a vote just by hands.
all in favor?
6. Any opposed? 6-0.
Are the people that were in the wings still here?
Are they still here?
I think they.
The people
I
from the
think they were.
solar? They're gone.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure they at least heard what we acted on.
I know a couple of them, I think, are watching on live stream, so the word will get out quick.
Thank you, Mark. Next item, 12.
Order 2021-45B, the Moxie Festival.
You want to follow that?
Could I ask you to take Brett before me, since he's got quite a ride home and basketball games are on tonight?
Let's do it.
Sure, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Good teammate there. Hey, Brett Richardson, Economic and Community Development Director, here tonight to talk about the funding for the Entrepreneurship Initiative from the Maine Community Foundation. Check arrived today, $50,000, and wanted to share with you the priorities that we're looking at. This came out of a 6 or 7 month planning process. Actually, I guess we got the grant about a year ago, right when COVID hit, so that slowed us down a little bit. But we've been working on it with a gentleman named Matt Wagner, PhD from Main Street America. He's been helping walk through analyses of what the assets are in Lisbon, what the opportunities are, and also what some of the gaps are that we can fill with programming to help new entrepreneurs start businesses in Lisbon and grow businesses in Lisbon. So on the heels of that planning process, he put together a report, which was in the council packet, and identified 10 recommendations to pursue. And so we're looking to use some of his technical assistance, which is pro bono, to do a market analysis on key market drivers in Lisbon for businesses, and with a focus on the Warumbo site and the Village Street area. And then to help design pipeline programming so that if somebody in Lisbon wants to start a business, we can engage with them with resources and programming that can help them start from concept to business plan to capitalization to growing their business and hiring people and creating jobs in the community. So he'll help us design those programs. And then for the funding, we're looking at doing a series of pop-up events over the course of the summer and beyond that will showcase some of the entrepreneurs in Lisbon, that will engage a business-led marketing initiative called Moxie Commerce, which came out of this planning process, and then also to invest in a long-term, year-round entrepreneur hub, which would include a co-working space, commercial kitchen, and areas for pop-up markets. So we're here to ask for approval to receive the $50,000 and to pursue those projects.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
On that? Discussion?
Second, yeah.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Appreciate it.
Nice work.
There.
Good night.
Good night.
You
Brett.
too. Enjoy the game.
All right.
Moxie Festival?
Mark, did you share the email that you sent? Did you send it to just me? Because I can read.
sent it to Diane.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Okay, so you guys have seen it. That's the point that I'm making. Is that, go ahead, Mark, you frame it then.
Okay, so there's, I also sent an email out with my response to, I think it was Sun Journal or Portland Press, with my position on how I believe the festival should be viewed at this point in early March. And, you know, I think that enthusiasm in our community is at an all-time low with not just festivals and activities, but it seems like school, no matter what we're doing, it seems like we need to kind of get through this COVID-19 as quick as possible and, you know, safely, obviously, but we need to get enthusiasm back in our community. And this is one way to do it, and I've been working with Brett, looking at Moxie Plaza activities and a summer event series, and seeing what we could do in a safe way, kind of spreading things out. And I just, right now, like I said in my email, I just don't think we could look at planning an effective, safe parade right now, or even Friday night events. So in that case, I mean, that's pretty much when people look at what the festival's all about, that's those two events right there, those two big things right there, kind of identify the Moxie Festival. But that doesn't mean that we can't do other things. And I mentioned even in the past, last year I was doing the car show and Moxie 5K.
Even if it's virtual?
If it's virtual or if it's not virtual, if it's live, but monitor the people coming in and having, like for example, instead of having the Moxie 5K on the roads where we need police, we need all these volunteers, we could have it in Beaver Park and call it something differently, but we also offer and market it to our community. Don't market to the entire New England community so that we have 40,000 people come over a 3-day break, 3-day weekend, but offer the fireworks on the 3rd of July instead of July, the weekend of the Moxie Festival. Things like that we can spread out over time. I think that would make it so it's makes more sense, has less people, and we do our job in trying to revive and increase the amount of enthusiasm in our community. I think that's what's important right now.
Any questions from Mark? I would make the motion that the Moxie Festival, as traditionally years past, that we're canceling again for 2021, but throughout the course of this program year, which will run clean through fall as far as I'm concerned, that if we have the opportunity to be able to incorporate Moxie-themed ideas associated with that we continue to explore those.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, that would be my motion.
I'll second.
And just for discussion's sake, I want to commend you, and I know Brett, and all the folks that you worked with to come up with a very creative and robust calendar of well thought out, not only from just a well thought out, taking different elements of the Moxie Festival, but other summertime events, and spreading them out over a calendar period that would allow people to participate, but being mindful of guidelines around the situation that we're in with COVID, and being smart about where are we targeting this marketing, and who do we want to. This is just as much about this community and raising that morale that you spoke about. So I couldn't agree more that the Moxie Festival, as it has traditionally appeared, we can't hold that this year. It's just there's no way we can do that safely. But we look towards 2022 and maybe be in a space where we'll kick that off again then. But right now, we can do a lot of cool things with what we have, and so I'm a big supporter of this plan as it sits. I think this is the way we should go.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think that this way of dealing with it gives us a lot of flexibility going forward for the summertime, particularly because who knows, maybe with the vaccinations and the pressure from other states to open up a little bit more, we can accommodate it much easier than we can if we brick ourselves into the traditional Moxie Festival.
The one piece that we asked for was when can we expect relief on numbers? That answer doesn't exist right now. Diane did research that, and there's nothing.
No one putting itself out there to actually make a recommendation or even look in the crystal ball. And if I may,
yes, please.
And I thank you, Mark, for coming forward. And it's always one of those things where it's hard enough to gear up for a big project, but it's hard to gear down for it too. You mean because to try to put everything in perspective of what you want to do and make everybody happy, and because the same energy still goes into it.
It's harder.
It's just the idea. It may be harder. I know even as positive change, we actually had a meeting the other night and we were talking about the concerts in the park and do you or don't you, and it's interesting because after a long discussion it was like, yeah, we can do something, you know what I mean. I'm sure that Ross has probably reached out to you, if not he will, and more of a spread out type of event, just local venue, trying to keep it small and simple but give people something to do, and whether that's the idea of spending more of a day there marking out the field and social, distancing, painting circles in the field, whatever you got to do. I think it is our responsibility to try to allow people to have some outside activity to do and actually be able to keep it. And again, no big name bands coming in, but actually if we can get local venues just to share some good spirit and goodwill, and spread it out like every other weekend versus every weekend, just to put something out there with the hope that maybe towards the end of August things are actually looking up and we can actually start, doing a little bit more. But if you don't put anything out there, nothing's going to happen, right?
Last thing we want to do is ask businesses for sponsorships right now. I mean, we don't want to go there.
Right.
And we're opposed to that. So we're not going to be asking for big bands because those cost a lot of money. So.
And I made the motion because being on the committee 2 years ago now, this will be the third summer that we transferred things from the economic development director, the department, and put it in recreation for Mark. And Mark, frankly, was one of the people that I looked to most last year because I think he was hit most hardest by actually pulling the plug on the Moxie Festival. He was the one that I'd see him at Food City, and he was still holding out optimism to 30 days out because he believes in his heart that he wants it to be able to happen. And I respect people that keep it on their sleeve because back in second week of May, I thought it was extremely cool to see this virtual fishing derby at Beaver Park. Don't tell me what we can't do. Tell me what we can do. And the fact is, I don't want to slow his roll. We got good staff associated with this. We saw some really huge things come last year, and I'm encouraged to be able to see what we can do by keeping the envelope, by doing something more locally for people like you. So it has my support.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
All right. I guess I'm going to be the contrarian on this one. So based off our state's current vaccination rate, which we've been vaccinating about 5,200 people a day, we will have vaccinated, again, this is trending, we will have vaccinated the entire state by the end of July. So at that point in time, by the time the Moxie Festival, which is the beginning of July, happens, we're probably sitting, if you project out, 80% of the state vaccinated by that point in time.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, and the motion on the table is actually that the festival is dead. To be able to incorporate the best of things, to be able to do something more locally in the Moxie spirit, that's what I want to encourage.
Well, and this was the thing is that based on current CDC guidelines, I have a feeling that probably by the summertime, our guidelines are going to look vastly different than they do currently right now.
I hope so.
That's the hope. Yeah.
I can't imagine, to your point, I can't imagine that will be in the state of emergency much beyond April. I don't see how realistically with at the levels we're going.
I wouldn't tempt that fate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to this noise back in January, they were hoping to have everybody vaccinated by the end of April. It was just on the news tonight that, to your point, they're looking at maybe end of July to be able to be opening up to everybody associated with that. So woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't really matter, but if we're closing the door to the topic in general, I think that's where I have the issue is, I'm not saying that we're going to. I'm saying the fact is, I don't want to be able to hold the hands or tie the hands of people that are trying to put events in a calendar from even happening at all. Just pull the plug on the bigger item for sure.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, my thing was, I don't even think we should pull the plug on the bigger item. I almost think that you could.
Well, you could make a go at it.
You could make a go at it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the problem you have there, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I have to go back to Julianne Balmer, and the fact is the person that's actually going to be trying to be able to sell this to a community, it's a lot of work for a maybe. And frankly, she was the one that hit it hard last year. So I don't want to be in that position because she's putting every ounce of her positive energy into it, and she had a ton of it. And the fact is to have her come out being the one seeing the opposite of what Mark was saying, just give it some time. I can appreciate where she's coming from because it's pretty deflating coming off a pretty successful prior year, if you will, because we went from a position with 5 or 6 key people on that committee to a room full of 40. It was kind of cool. I mean, I very much enjoyed working with Carl on the parade. The fact is, there's no way I can salvage a parade in good conscience now. Mark's absolutely right, because frankly, I should have been starting on that in January to be able to get people keyed up. It takes that much energy to be able to get commitments on some of the things we're talking about. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree that it's physically possible to do all of that. I just don't think it's
probable.
The right thing, probable, and Mark could probably attest to the fact that when you're asking people to sponsor, what kind of reactions are you already getting? Or it's like, okay, I don't know, you're not getting, I wouldn't imagine you're getting people who want to definitely commit to things.
I'm hopeful he's not even putting himself in a position to ask, because I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, we're not asking. We're doing things that we know they're
That's what I mean.
Yeah, paid for themselves by user fees, or that they've already been allocated. For example, I think the fireworks, I think we still have those fireworks funds already paid for. So I talked to the pyros who owe us, and they gave me some dates already. So we're working. We're putting some things together and seeing what we come up with.
Well, it can look like Moxie without being the traditional parade.
Frankly, it won't look like what Moxie morphed into. It'll look what Moxie was in its original days.
Probably, yeah.
Frontier days back in
back in the JCs associated with that. It was a community-based operation. Every now and then it begs the question to be able to do reset and come back stronger.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I think that next year's festival is going to be quite an event.
Any other? I appreciate the perspective, though. Because the man standing behind you was the reason we've delayed that discussion for as long as we did last year, because he was hoping for that same exact thing last year, and I really regret having to have that same conversation 1 year later on the same topic. It's frustrating.
I want to believe in the optimism just as much as you do that we'll get to that place. I'm operating under the assumption that we'll operate with the same guidelines that we had last summer that we have this summer. I know that the likelihood is they'll probably be less restrictive than last summer, and that's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. But I don't think we'll be at a no restrictions kind of place. But I'd like to think they'll be lighter. Yeah, but they'll be much lighter than what we dealt with last year. So I think if we go in with a conservative idea of we're going to be stuck under the same guidelines we had last summer and get pleasantly surprised as we run up to it, that might allow us to look at some of these events a little bit differently and then maybe open up. Because if nothing else, I know that there's a good group of folks who know how to think on their feet and have things come at them quickly and know how to make that, take a lemon to turn it into lemonade. So in this case, you're much better than lemonade because we're getting good news versus bad. So I like our odds when we get closer to the summer with this calendar in place to be able to get more creative with it if we have the ability to do so because the restrictions are less.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of events we'll probably be able to find that we can do safely that maybe aren't as intensive as putting everybody right together on like a float or requiring people to come in from Texas or something that we could still do safely as a community. That like car show or the Moxie the river race that we used to have there, that kind of thing would be the kind of outdoor events like that I think would be very effective.
Don't tie it into a timeline. I said fall for a reason, because the fact is I don't want to tie Mark's hands. The fact is if a weekend works better for a car show later in fall because I can stall to get a better crowd associated with that, I'm all for it. Because we have to, because it's been memorialized as to benefit the Sunshine Hill Gang. The fact is it benefits our senior center. The fact that one operation helps the other.
I just want to see men, women, and children shoulder to shoulder, sitting at a table, chugging Moxie, till their eyes cross.
Dude, I'm already there, thanks. You're killing me, dude.
I knew that was coming.
I have enough problem with eye contact. You guys kill me. All right, any other item on this? All in favor?
And those opposed?
I was supposed
Thank
for
you.
the,
No, I clearly noted he did it for optimism reasons. I want that. I want that in the minutes.
Have fun with it.
Nice.
Jeff is too optimistic.
If you could put the quote "dreamer" around that, I love it. Thank you, Mark. Next item, 12.
Order 2121, number 46, to amend Chapter 10, Article 4, itinerant vendors, Sections 10253 and 259.
So moved.
Anything new on this? Nothing, right? Still roll call?
Yes.
Can I have a second?
And who seconded it?
I'll second it.
If there's no discussion, roll call.
Sure. Counselor Albert.
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Ward.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Ganong.
yes.
Counselor Colby. Oh, she's not here. Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
Order passed, 6-0.
Next.
Is other business. Council committee reports.
School.
So next week is the school budget committee presentation to us. So March 9. Get excited.
Likewise, on the desk when you sat down tonight, there should be a thumb drive from Diane on the budget, as she knows it at this point too. So that information.
Not yet.
I don't think she has it yet. Yeah.
The heck
You
did
have
I
one?
have? What did I have sitting in my desk?
You
I had a red one up there. Was that somebody else's?
It must
Here, then I need to return this because I'm misinformed.
That's
About
somebody
time.
else's.
Okay.
I wonder what that was.
Well, I knows what's on that, right?
got the,
I
got the secret.
It's not
got
going
the-
home with me.
Got the, got the plans to the rebel base. Give me that.
Yeah, leave it there. then we'll take
I
it.
think it's our clerk's.
I'm shooting for the 9th, actually.
Okay. Okay, that'll be good because the 16th follows with the municipal, and then we roll with a
Yep.
schedule that was brought to the finance committee last night as well.
So you segued nicely there. The finance committee will join us at all of our meetings. So they'll be there with us, zooming in.
Good stuff.
Which reminds me, we'll be in the room here, and then they'll do their thing elsewhere, right? Or we all zoom
No,
into that one.
everybody-
Everybody be Zoom.
Okay, everybody be zooming.
Except
everybody-
for April 6th, the only night, for some reason, I don't have budget meetings that night. I don't know what I did. But anyway, it's just a regular council meeting.
Okay.
So is that going to be at 6 or 7?
9th. I'll talk to you
The
about
budget
that.
meetings are at 6.
You'll know everything by then. The school committee's presentation.
That Zoom meeting for the budget presentation is a
Well, so
special
next week
meeting,
is a
so it's
budget
at
meeting.
7.
Thanks.
Oh, it is a special meeting, so
But
it's not a...
for that
Not
one
a
only.
regular one
Right.
on the 9th.
Do you want to do the next week's at 6 o'clock? I told the committee wrong last night. Where it's a budget presentation, I told them it'd be at 6 because that's the only thing on the agenda. Or do you, but Twyla's bringing up a good point. It's a special meeting, so they're at 7. Unless you want to change it to 6.
Who's at 7?
It's posted for 7 o'clock, but we can change it if you're interested.
All it is the school budget's presentation.
You've already communicated at the finance committee 6, correct?
Yes, I did. That's, yeah.
Is the school planning on 6 or 7?
They were present. That's why I was asking.
I'm sure they could flex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always
I don't
hold
speak for
theirs
them, but-
early.
They always meet at that time anyway, so
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
they
think
do.
you're gonna find that
So
they're gonna
6
say
p.m.?
no.
Let me ask the loaded question for budget workshops. would 6 work better across the board for everybody? My intent,
That's what he has.
That's what we have, because some of the nights we have our regular council meeting afterwards.
okay, so yes.
Talked
then-
about that when we set this,
Then
set
let's,
this up.
let's go with 6 for this next,
Yeah.
next Tuesday as well, so it's actually consistent for the planning board's purpose.
We'll change that then.
We let Rick know tomorrow, too.
Just
In
so
the
everyone-
format that Norm delivered with the planning board last night
An
and
invitation
finance
to.
committee, as they participate through these processes, the intent would be same as usual. Get your questions in, copy the entire group in email the week prior. That way, the night of, department heads and Diane can just answer those questions there and anything new. We're not rehashing content, so we can get in and get out within the hour.
The only time that won't be applicable for is for next week, because the school committee's going to bring theirs to us, but we won't have that budget put together yet. Diane will have it for us on the 9th. And then going forward from there, we'll have that 1 week advance insight to be able to send our questions along. So,
I had a peripheral question too. I don't remember if it was you or if it was the chair. Involvement with the planning board, finance committee at the final night for the school budget. Yes, I would figure that if they're in for the entire grocery haul, that they should be sitting there that night as well too.
Yep.
Primarily because when it comes down to quite literally those 7 referendum items that are going to be on that ballot, they ought to have a process in that piece that comes down to that dollar figure too.
So if they're going to, Twyla and I talked about that, if they're going to make a recommendation on the school budget, they're going to have to do that very early on in order for it to.
No, I don't believe that that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Is the fact is they're sitting there in the room, so the fact is, as we're discussing that
Right.
items, we could ask for feedback on that
Okay.
topic. I'm not expecting
Include
them
them.
to make a recommendation. It's just to have a hand in that process.
Okay,
But for our final budget, they will actually give us a recommendation.
Yes.
for hours,
yeah.
yes.
For the
Yes.
final budget, that would be my
Yeah.
hope.
And when we discover public safety, which is all one night, it's police, fire, and EMS, they have the ability to be able to weigh in on specific things right there. And when we start talking about the list, or the things that we're potentially talking about cutting at that last night, the finance committee would be available for that aspect, because they're going to see things that we're not going to see.
Absolutely.
that's why they're in that place.
Okay, I'm sorry. LDC. No, I missed Dawn. Planning.
Well, they're working on the medical and adult use marijuana situation still. It's about ready to come forward. And surprisingly enough, they're working on a solar farm.
Hey,
Go figure, right?
well, I'd like to hear more about that.
Yes, yeah.
LDC, my friend.
Basically, Brett's basically been here the last couple of weeks highlighting some of the information he's been doing. The idea of going out and having some information brought to us on a Rumble site, some renderings, and some better description on that to promote to the community, and the idea of the grant he was talking about tonight, and just a lot of good stuff. Brett actually has hands full right now, so I don't think he has any. I don't think he ever drives into work wondering what he was going to do. So, with that being said, LDCs keep moving forward. If anybody has any questions, please reach out to Brett if they upcoming meetings or any other activities that are coming up.
Conservation, I know they had their virtual meeting on the 22nd, I believe it was, and they discussed their goals and what they're working on for the coming year, which, as you heard from me in the past, is logging for the town properties is complete, putting work where the money is going to go into projects there, the trail maps that Mr. Seaman is working on, and invasive species, I apologize. And more on that as I check in with Mr. Main. Recreation.
So Mark stole my thunder. Moxie's not happening in the traditional form, but he's got such a great calendar put together that I know him and Brett have talked about, and I'm excited to see how that's going to map out. We'll get to see more of that coming up, but creative ways to attack some of our traditional events like the Moxie 5K run, but I'm sure some things that are going to be familiar And I'd like to think some of the recreation programs that we have for the summertime for the kids, so. All good things on the horizon.
County, I got nothing for tonight. Library, sir.
Nothing to report.
Water.
They meet next week at 5:30, so I may be late to the Zoom thing.
Okay. Finance, anything that we didn't already cover? I
So
apologize.
just what we talked about, that they went through last night, just to kind of take a look at all the meetings that they have and realize that a lot of they put a pause on their traditional meeting that they would have at the end of every month through the end of April, so that they could be focused on working with us in the budget workshops.
Perfect. This first year will be the little bit of flexing on making sure that they get the process because they're new to the process. The one that comes to mind, starting out of the gate, Rick probably ought to want to spend a little more time on the subsidy form because that committee is going to be the first time they're seeing it.
Yep.
So what the individual components mean associated with that, so they get a decent footing underneath them for what the process would be. I think that'll be good because we got some talented people there. It's just that first year getting their understanding so they have a good understanding this year, 1 year out. They could just seamless and move on.
They all seem pretty excited about it, so that's good news.
Good. Town manager.
At the last meeting, you mentioned about the library fines, so I had Diane Netto go back. She went back from 2004 up to 2020, so she did 16 years. And there's a total of 220 red flag patrons out of that time period. 21 of them owe fines totaling $322.20. And all of those fines, I mean, that's very low. She does a really good job staying on top of this. That was all pre-COVID. And then we have 199 patrons that owe for lost or not returned books, and that total is $8,800. And they, well, they don't owe it. They need to bring the books back, but that's the total of the loss of not having those books.
Okay. So is it more or less with COVID now, and is there any?
No, she's not. She said COVID really isn't having an impact on
Okay.
her.
All right.
Yeah.
I know in Lewiston and Auburn, the tone has actually been we're separating the elderly and the poor from the affluent because they're the ones that are actually hit hardest by the library, that we shouldn't be having another piece of a side effect. So if that's the case, then I would accept that and we'll move on. I don't want to make it more of a
We don't see
hardship.
that there's an issue.
Okay.
And they stay on top of it, which is good. I mean, that's a long period of time to only have
Well, I've
$322.
seen her notes. I'm not surprised she came back with you to 16 years worth of data. Thank her for that because I like the way.
Watching.
Yeah, no, right on.
She probably even knows all the people by first and last name of people that actually.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
That's a question.
Please.
So, Diane, I seen a memo that actually it was this Monday that the town office was open a little late because of a new generator fire.
Yeah, that didn't work.
It didn't work out.
Nope, because it was raining.
Okay.
So they have it in their contract, when it's raining, the linemen don't go out and do that type of work. It's
Okay.
a union contract. We didn't know that. The only time they go out is in emergency situations. So right now, it's scheduled for 7:30 Friday morning.
What's the weather look like? Sorry, I had to ask.
I didn't hear any follow-up, so I was just wondering if it
No,
happened or not.
there's nothing they could do about it. They couldn't make their men come out and do that
So
job.
basically, everything's in place. They're just waiting to swap over.
That's
hit the switch.
exactly, yep.
Nice.
So they did accommodate us, and they're going to start earlier, so it won't affect us.
That's good.
Nice.
Diane, at the last meeting, we asked you a cryptic task of legal as well
I don't
on
have that
the.
yet.
Do we have that from Dan
Not
on?
in writing yet, by the end of the week.
Okay.
Can I backtrack to the generator for a minute?
Yeah.
We had a maintenance contract for this, so we don't have one of our people going out there every month trying to fire this
Well,
thing up.
once it's in place, we'll
Yeah,
get a
I just want to make sure that I know that we have that
Glad
in
you
place.
said that,
Yeah.
because I need to follow up on something.
Just so we, just so we know that we have somebody checking in, checking it, testing it, and then letting somebody who is their contact in the building know that everything's copacetic for this month. That way we're all good.
Yeah, we have that right now on the one at the,
Some of the on-site's not even necessary. Just like
At the high
anything else, you
school?
can do it remote.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
and the wastewater treatment plant, that new one, they're under contracts.
I don't care if they want to do it Kreskin style from their office or in our backyard.
Something that
yeah.
actually follows up on it, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, Twyla?
Is appointments. Order 2021, number 48, the Lisbon Development Committee appointments. You have open 2 regular members to 2024, and you have 1 associate member to 2024. We have heard back from Zach Henderson, who wishes to be reappointed to 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and does that leave 2 vacancies then?
We can advertise again. We'll let you know when
Okay.
we have a couple of.
I need a second for the motion.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
I got it.
Jeff's
Okay.
got it.
All right, all in favor of that?
Order passed 6-0.
And if we could do the re-advertisement to be able to drum up some more support, that absolutely.
Yeah, because those were for 2 full-time.
For the listening dot, Twyla, because we have the opportunity, is there any other vacancies on committees that we know that we could also be looking to fill?
If those that are interested and they want to know which positions are open, we encourage them to go to our website and to click on our boards and committees. And there's a link there to our on-board program, and their vacancies are listed there.
Is that woman not a rock star, people?
I know.
She's pretty amazing. Absolutely.
Is that rehearsed?
No, she's good. She's good. It was fluid. I like it. It's like Alex Trebek in the room.
I just have one more thing I meant to say under my items. I just want to really thank Twyla for putting together all these employee service awards. She put a lot of work, and they really came out good. They really did. So I want to thank
you,
Twyla
Twyla.
for that.
Thank you.
Audience participation, is that where we're at, Twyla?
Counselor
No,
Communications. Are we at? Yep, Counselor Communications.
The one that's in the back of my mind that we probably want to be thinking about because it's very timely with the thawing and refreezing overnight. The sidewalk on Village Street.
Yep.
Are we going to move forward associated with that treatment on the rest of the sidewalk? Because I heard one observation from Don already reported to us.
I'm still, when it clears out, I noticed today it's all covered. So you're not going to be able to tell probably till whenever the snow's gone. There's been sufficient salt on top. I know the pits in the other section are getting worse, but I don't know what it is in the section that they ground. And it looked to me like it was beginning to have some problems, but I really would like to look at it again when it gets, and I go by there enough, I can look at it 2 or 3 times a week.
Diane, did you say we had a regular meeting in April,
Yes,
April 6th?
yes, is that, yeah.
Will there be enough daylight that we actually have a site walk of Village Street at 6:45 prior to a 7 o'clock meeting to be able to?
It would be in daylight savings time by then.
Yeah, March 14th is daylight savings turnaround, so there should
I
be
would
plenty.
give it, I'd do 6:30. The fact is that we're expected 6:30 to be able to weigh in, to walk the street with our Public Works Director to be able to make
Good
that
move.
happen.
Mandy's going to be here next week for a construction meeting, so I'm going to send her over to just
Appreciate
look
it.
at it.
I happened to see Mr. Poirier this morning, and in fact, in that regard, I happened to think of it as if we're going to do it, we need to give him some feedback in the spring here sooner than later.
Yeah, I was looking at it today, and you can't see because it's just covered with stuff. So.
Yeah. Nope, just very timely. The other one was at our last meeting, we discussed options to be able to pursue for IT with the roundtable. I wanted you guys all to know that Diane has done so. She's explored the first piece of it. In my opinion, feel it's cost prohibitive for the price on the Headhunter in its truest sense, unless it's a short term for that 1 month period, May to June, when we're actually lapsing with Roundtable. It was in excess of
You're
75,
better
80.
off doing the direct hire through them and paying that one-time fee than to do the the short term. It's very, very expensive.
$75,000-$80,000 expensive.
Right.
And I figured if we're going to have that there,
We want them here every day.
that's option number one. The option number two was the RFP.
Yes, that's.
Diane is pursuing that piece, trying to get that resolved sooner than later. So if we're successful for it, she could bring it back to us.
Yep.
If she doesn't, we'll know that again it's cost prohibitive, in excess of the $100,000 that was it 110 for Roundtable.
It was 104, and it ended up going up again to 104,000 just for the support, and then the data server, that was going to double because of our space issues, so that was going to go up to 12,000, and we're paying about almost 6,000 now, so there's those two increases, and then we were going to have to pay for any type of project, which is going to be expensive. The server project would have been 19,000, and any of the smaller projects, they were going to charge us nickel and dime us. So, and they're not bidding on it, by the way. They
That's
get back
fine.
to me and they're not bidding. But I do have people that are going to, and they've been in touch with me. But at this point, when you're looking at that kind of money, you're better off hiring somebody in-house.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Music to my ears.
On a
Music
report,
to my
I would
ears.
just actually put out, get a job description and actually put out, put out the word to see about who actually would apply for a position. I mean, is that just unreasonable at this point in time, that we actually come up with a job description and put it out for applicants?
That's pretty much what this company is doing for me, and they're vetting them on their end, and then they're sending them to me, and Ryan McGee and myself were interviewing them. So you could do that, but they're already doing it, and...
But we're paying to have that done, right?
No, I'm not paying anything. If we hire them, then you have to pay them.
Their headhunter fee.
That's when you pay them.
What's the type of fee on that? Is that
So
like
if you hire, just say for 70,000, say you hire someone for 70,000, their cost is 15,750, and you're done.
So basically, we're going to pay them over 10,000 just to do interviews for us.
Yeah.
Not even. They're vetting somebody to send you a name.
Yeah.
I mean,
not even doing the interview.
So I mean, what I'm thinking is there may be an opportunity for someone that's within our community that has the skills that may be looking to actually stay within the community and not travel out, that may actually say, this is a perfect job for me and this is where I've been. And they may even work for the companies that actually, that we've been actually paying for, who knows, right?
It's just, it's a timing factor right now. It really is. It's like to go through all of
The tone that I heard at our last meeting said options, and options did not have one category. I heard all three. I heard headhunter, I heard RFP, and I heard hire. Diane is landing with the fact is, for the prices that we've actually heard on the first option, that the hire is probably going to be there, but I don't want to presuppose and commit on behalf of the council for somebody's asking for all options. The RFP still has merit until we know what the pricing should be. So I've asked, she would have actually liked to gone to the point of hiring, but that would have removed that option. I want to know what that option is.
So where are we in that process right now? Is there a certain time frame of what we are waiting for that to come through?
Yeah, the bid opening is next week on the RFP. I think it's the 11th. It'll be ready for the next meeting.
At that next meeting, we'll have more information and be able to figure out where to go from there.
Right.
I think that's going to be the thing that really makes it easiest for us. We'll see what comes in for the RFP piece. I think we already know that we're actively moving towards the, and I get what you're saying too, Fern. I think that you want to always think about we're making sure we're casting the net everywhere local, because that's going to be the greatest appeal for those folks right in their backyard, and maybe they already have that skill set. But the thing that's great about some of those firms is that they vet out folks who aren't qualified immediately, or maybe have qualifications that may seem like the transferable skills, but end of the day, 60, 90, even 120 days down the line, it's not a good fit. And those, the stutter steps, if you will, sometimes that come with hiring staff, and I'm sure you can appreciate that more than anybody, that everybody looks good in the interview process, but when they get in, it's just not the right fit for them.
Well, they come in as a temp, and then if we hire them after 90 days, then we actually pay the fee. But if they don't work out, then we're not actually on the hook for anything? Is that basically what you're saying?
Actually, what Diane's advocating is they wouldn't come in that way. You would
Right.
hire them based on their
Exactly.
qualifications.
Yeah.
You're paying them the headhunter fee, so they're coming in at an employee status to start.
With no, so if it doesn't work out, then
Well, no, this
So
is-
let me give you an example. So if we brought somebody in for 3 months,
Okay,
it would cost us $31,350 for
Okay.
3 months.
okay.
That's expensive.
Right. See, that's the thing. We're trying to
That's the
avoid
thing.
those start and stops.
Yep.
That you're going to waste all that money in training and we're bringing somebody up to speed only to have them leave.
Yep.
If we can get somebody out of the gate through some of these services who, when Diane and Alan or whoever, when we're talking about skill set, what's needed for this, and this is something Diane's been tasked with, and looking at what Roundtable does for us right now,
Yep.
and having that conversations of, here are the things that we do the most of. She's pulled tickets from Roundtable to say, we do X number of password resets, we do this many issues related to, printers. So we understand what our pain points are consistently for day-to-day op. And those are the kinds of things you feed to those folks on the other end.
Right.
And they look at the staff that they have and say, who are our folks that have the skill set that support this type of stuff? And then you start talking about pricing, money, and all that other good stuff. So you're getting candidates who are qualified to meet your needs when they hit the ground running. And then they get vetted to make sure that some of the things that would normally you wouldn't want to see in an applicant don't show up on your door before they get to Diane and whoever and have an interview. So that by that time, we're hopefully weeding out some of those candidates that might be in that starter step that we talked about, where we've spent all that money in training and resources to get them onboarded, only to have them go away, whether it's by our choice or by their own.
The one piece that caught my attention the day after I talked to you, Diane, and we talked about the RFP and then going with the other, I had the opportunity to sit down with friends that actually are in the IT field. Their price point for what I feel we need, not having seen the job description, which we would have if the RFP flounders, is closer to 50. Which I felt good, because that's a huge step down from what the headhunter fee is associated with that. But that said, we will proceed with the RFP at this point. You're working on the job description as we talked about, and to that dollar figure, what I've tasked Diane with is that job description should probably include what the responsibility on the police department side to get that one in-house resource to be able to spread it out the best to be able to address it. Likewise, the other piece for the backups, which also are a roundtable, the fact that committing the resource that if we need to buy either a cloud-based subscription for backups or the hardware to be able to do so, that the person, again, we have that in-house, that we're not paying in excess of 14 to 20 grand on top of this, still to farm that out.
So, I mean, again, I'm new to this, so so do we give them kind of our idea where price point we're going to be, or do they actually say this person meets all your criteria, but actually there's really they may bring forward a perfect person, but they may be $50,000 out of our price range? I mean, how do you actually get to that point where they're actually recommending someone to you that actually meets your criteria financially?
I gave them
Yeah.
a price range.
I was going to say screening includes what we're willing to pay.
Gotcha,
I
okay.
gave them a price range just based on what I had seen in the paper that other communities are.
Okay. So that's
Advertising for?
established before we go
And
into the
you
game.
don't have to hire their candidate.
So,
Yeah.
like anything,
No.
You don't have to hire their candidate,
Right.
because what I'm envisioning associated with this is if at that point in time, there are 3 candidates that Diane has talked about are interested in applying for the position, we can consider them. But likewise, this is going to go out to whatever listserv or wherever we publish our ads on Indeed and that type of stuff, that we can hire our own candidate. And there's no additional fee, no headhunter, or nothing.
So we're not stuck with a bill
No, but if
until
we
after
go that
hire.
route, I'm
Right.
gonna need to be doing that right off.
yeah, we're not locked in. We're not locked into one resource for a pool of candidates. And to that point, we can certainly interview as many candidates as we want to meet all of those needs that Alan already pointed out, and then some. And it's going to pull back money that we would have had to pay out to a third-party vendor for cloud storage, for you name it. It's all going to be something, if we're handling it in-house. We not only have that, we still have the opportunity to work and partner with the IT resource at the school, so we can start talking about some of those failover redundancies that we need. We desperately need to have those conversations about disaster recovery and being able to work, especially those having a resource here and a resource in that department, work in tandem to make sure that our back end is covered on the stuff like this, because I think that's one of the areas we're sorely lacking in right now.
Because we asked for options, and I knew it was going to take time, I also asked Diane to reach out to the school department. If there is a short-term issue with this contract lapses for the month of June, could the school assist us until we could bring a resource in? So she's also working that angle too. So
I haven't
again, it's
contacted
part.
them yet.
Again, it's trying to be as flexible on this that we're not left with no resource when the time frame comes.
And Diane, that could look like simply day-to-day stuff, the stuff that's going to keep us operating. I mean, as far as because right now we still have our cloud storage is with Roundtable until it's not,
Right.
correct?
Right.
So we don't have to have that as a worry. Ultimately, it's just the day-to-day ops.
Yeah, I've got to look and see when that expires.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, didn't mean.
No, it's just been a lot of dialogue on that one topic, and I know it's one that you guys knew when we did talk about options, and I at least gave her enough. She had a budget component she needed to be able to address, so you're going to see the worst case scenario in there
Yes,
for at least
you are in
discussion
budget.
purposes.
Yep.
But the other options that we talked about, I clearly did not hear a consensus in one direction, so she's still pursuing the options.
So, sounds to me like at some point you're going to want me to go out and solicit for candidates. So I might as well start that now.
At least pull together the
I-
job description, but don't presuppose, because you do have an RFP that's coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, again, it ties right into the other discussion associated with job descriptions for all of our full-time employees, so you can start carving that one out. Knowing that we have a lot that we're asking of Megan right now with all the other tasks as well.
I think that timing it couldn't be any better to be going out for something like this. Opportunities, there'll be a strong candidate pool. So I feel pretty good about our chances of securing a candidate if we don't find something. We'll have a lot of places we won't be short of good candidates to pick from, which I feel good about that. Between the headhunter service bringing us potential candidates, and then if we cast a net out there, I think that it'll be interesting to see what comes back.
Can I
Diane?
ask you a question?
Yep.
If candidates are out there, would they not naturally go to something like the headhunter or somebody to find a
No.
job?
You know,
Depends.
it's going to
Situational.
depend. Yeah. It's
I
gonna-
don't know. I'm
They
just-
they check Indeed too, which is a free resource, and there's no headhunter fee, so it depends on where you list.
So tech folks, everybody's different in how they do things. And I'm not going to pretend I speak for all of them, but I know enough to know that, yeah, they're going to go ahead and utilize the tools they feel are the most effective for getting them quality. They're screening too, so they want an opportunity to go to a place where they can
Whether
continue
it's
to
LinkedIn or
develop,
whatever.
develop their skills or take on a next role. I think the appealing part about our position here is that there's some real growth potential for somebody who's a junior engineer in an organization somewhere who can come in, and junior engineers started out usually in a help desk role, so they get and understand all of the day-to-day things like tickets for dealing with password resets and lockouts and all of the garden variety. So they can get that on lock pretty quickly and get a system in place rocking that out. Then it'll become looking at the infrastructure and saying, what is the need here? Diane will be able to bring a lot to bear on that and talk about at least saying, here's what our kind of standard bearer levels are: server maintenance there, server maintenance here, cloud storage, and they're going to bring their own knowledge to that as well and say, well, here's what I see as opportunities. So there's somebody out there who's in a junior role right now and has been doing a great job in that role, but maybe doesn't have the opportunity to move forward in their company. We might get them. We might get them at the right price.
Doesn't even have to be company. The
Yeah.
fact is you look municipal, and the fact is municipal stills municipal. The fact is we steal each other's talent. It is literally, the fact is all you have to do is hit the right person at the wrong time, and they're portable. The fact is they feel that they're improving themselves.
And they can bring.
If that wouldn't be true, it wouldn't be hard enough to find a town manager or any other department. The fact is because we steal each other's talent.
We're bringing them in to do a particular job here, but they can bring a whole skill set we're not even counting on, and they can turn the corner in some other areas that we didn't expect or anticipate. I like what we get. I know I put a lot of hope into these positions. I'm just hoping we get somebody who can serve our needs so we can stop farming it out, because I think we've been ready to stop that for about 3 years. So
Diane, The last piece that I have, we every year actually work in the budget process a commitment on paving for the coming year for Randy to be able to put a bid out sooner than later.
Yeah.
Is there any traction to be able to get that moved up in the list of hierarchy for discussion amongst the parties to be able to afford him that opportunity? Because everybody that I'm seeing, by way of comparison, things that I am putting out normally in March went out in December at the City of Lewiston. So contractors are filling that dance card right now. The sooner we can get that on the street, the better chance that we have to be able to capitalize on some good pricing if we can get a baseline of what we're looking at for capital for paving for the coming year.
So do you want, I can put that
Put it
on
with
our first
LCIP.
budget meeting, if you'd like.
Sooner you can get it on an agenda that we can get consensus here, that we know.
Okay, yeah, so I can put that on the next agenda for you.
I'm good with it. And the fact
Okay.
is, because what you need to, at that point, you can start with Randy flushing out details on
Yep.
a RFP.
Yep.
Just put in that baseline of, okay, if you know you've got, in years past, it's been $400,000.
Yep.
If we know that that 400,000 is going to pass the straight face test here and nobody's willing to be able to cut it, you got what you need to be able to put the RFP on the street.
Okay,
That would be my intention, sooner than later.
I'll put that on the next agenda.
And if we can gain another month in the line, it's going to just help us on pricing that I'm seeing right now.
Yep.
Sorry, that was my three. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Next, Twyla?
Audience participation and response for new items. At this time, those in the audience, there are none. So we can just move to those at Town Hall Live video streaming. They are now invited to send comments.
I have nothing at this time, Twyla, so.
Okay. And you have an executive session, correct? All right. Order 2021-49 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 40568, Personnel Matters.
So move.
I need a second for that.
I'll second that.
We will not be coming back for any vote or anything of that nature, so we can lock up, so you can shut the cameras down,
Sign
Twyla, and
Okay. And the
we'll let
vote?
you know the motion to.
Oh, and the vote?
Yeah, I think we
All in favor.
all in favor of the.
6-0. Order passed.
Okay.
Twyla, can you kill the camera and come back in for a second?
Yes, I can.
This is gonna be
I can't remember what the hell I wanted to ask her.
it's gonna be a long one,
No,
because I'm trying to decide if I should go in the men's room now or if I.
go.
I don't know.
Because it's going to take me that long to figure out what the hell I wanted to ask now.